Chapter 14 Breaking Point August 1979. To everybody's shock, Regulus gets a little better. Hilary Virtanen and her team are perplexed but happy nonetheless. Regulus's newfound vitality means he can endure riskier tests, and they take advantage of it while it lasts. Terrifyingly, no one knows whether this is just a small reprieve before things get worse, or if it's the start of real recovery. Without a diagnosis, there's no way to tell. But Regulus can breathe a little easier and his fevers spike less often. The scans show the flowers taking root in his lungs and ribs are still very much there, but their progress seems to have stagnated. Regulus would prefer they disappeared, but a win is a win. He'll take it. It's because he's feeling stronger than he has in weeks, maybe months, that he's allowed to make a short trip to James's hospital room. James is lucky. He's been discharged today after a couple of weeks locked up in St. Mungo's. He's come to visit Regulus every single evening since that first time. Much to the nurse's annoyance, he always stays way too long and has to be chased out of Regulus's room well past curfew. They play cards or talk, or charm the water in Regulus's glass to splash each other. It's surprising the amount of fun one can have confined to a bed if they put their mind to it. In fact, Regulus has been having such a good time, he finds himself a little sad James is fully healed. Immediately, he appalled at himself. That's selfish and horrible. He is ecstatic that James is well and that his injuries did not leave any lingering sequels. He's celebrating that James gets to leave this horrible place, that he's free to return to his normal life. But Regulus would be lying if he didn't admit he's going to miss James's daily visits. They make being caged inside St. Mungo's at least somewhat tolerable. For this special occasion, Regulus has put on actual clothes. When it became clear he hasn't leaving the hospital for a while, he asked Effie to bring him his own pajamas and more relaxed outfits. He may be dying, but if he goes, he'll go in something better than a backless hospital gown. There's only so much roughness his oversensitive, overheated skin can take. Voices spill from James's room. The door is open, a swatch light cutting across the corridor. Shadows move over it. Regulus counts too many. Perhaps Lily is here. She's been visiting them both after her training concludes. Sometimes she comes with Pandora, who is still researching maladies on Regulus's behalf. She brings him Barty and Evan's letter. All the rage. Everyone says they make the best scallops in the city. Regulus steps inside the room and freezes. It's not Lily or Pandora or anyone remotely acceptable who's visiting James. It's he who must not be named. Bile, bitter and acid hot, burns the back of his throat. In the time he's been at St. Mungo's, Regulus has blissfully put this man's existence out of his brain. He'd been busy fighting for his life during the day and laughing with James in bed at night. But now you know who is here, and he's larger than life, and Regulus feels so small it's making him sick. How could he let himself forget James belongs to someone else? Effie and Monty turns towards him, smiles breaking on their faces when they spot him. James stands by his bed, rummaging through a duffel bag. Rafael is there next to him, hovering, too close for their relationship to be anything other than what Regulus knows it to be. Flashing memories crowd behind his eyes. A wall, a tide, flashes of tongue, a soft noise of pleasure. Sorry, Regulus mutters awkwardly. He'd rather be anywhere else right now, but there's no escaping this. I just... Reg, James looks up from his back and grins. They let you come all the way here? Yes, he says, shy because everyone's staring at him. Monty takes James's place, mumbles something about finishing up the packing. James runs a nervous hand through his hair. He takes a step closer and the fucking boyfriend materializes at his side to slide a hand around his waist in a gesture that strikes Regulus as absurdly possessive. Who is going to steal him from you? Regulus wants to scream. The sickly boy he thinks of as a little brother? His actual brother? Ah, maybe you are threatened by his brother's literal soulmate. This guy needs to check himself, Regulus thinks, fuming. It's unnecessary and ridiculous to act this way in a room full of James's family. As though reading his mind, James glances at his boyfriend, a small frown tugging his eyebrows together. Effie eyes them with something bordering on disapproval. The vicious, petty part of Regulus loves her for it. Sirius, whom Regulus hasn't paid much attention to until now, steps up to him. Hey, how are you feeling? You look good. Got some color on you. Sirius is right, you know, Remus adds. You do look healthier. It's good to see you out of bed. I'm fine. I walked all the way here without help. How pathetic that he's boasting of having walked through a hospital. This time last year he could have run laps around a Quidditch pitch without breaking a sweat. That's great, Reggie, Sirius says. It breaks Regulus's heart a little to see how desperately his brother clings to any small bits of positive news. It's eating Sirius alive that he's sick. Regulus can see it plain as a day. He hates the thing in his bones all the more for it. Sirius has suffered enough, sacrificed enough, fought enough. If only Regulus could get better just to spare him this. But he can't. All he can do is try. Endure the tests, talk to Sari about symptoms, puzzle over theories until they find out that what this thing is. Where the vines and the flowers blooming in his lungs came from, what's feeding them. Regulus clears his throat and dares another glance at James. He stepped away from Rafael, who looks decidedly put out. I wanted to say goodbye to James. I'm glad you are going home. This place is bleak. Doesn't have Effie's cooking. Behind him, Regulus hears a badly muffled sob. He doesn't turn around. Refuses to watch Effie be emotional over his condition. It doesn't do any of them an ounce of good. Oh, James exclaims with the air of someone who knows how to create a distraction. Do you think they will let you come for dinner? We'll bring you right back after, but maybe they will allow it, since you are better. Hope bubbles like boiling water inside of Regulus. It aches. He knows they will say no. There's no way Sari will risk him having an episode away from the hospital, and they can't control when the flowers come. They can't anticipate them. I don't know, he hedges. Despite knowing better, Regulus can't mute the stupid voice saying maybe in the back of his head. Yearning is a pickaxe cleaving through the walls he's built around his chest. Hope wells up through the cracks, bleeding out of Regulus with every word. But I can ask. Let's go. James crosses the room, gesturing Regulus should follow him out the door. I'll come with you. Sari likes me. No, she doesn't, Sirius says, appalled. She thinks you are a nuisance. She likes me more than you, James shoots back. Why don't you lot head to the restaurant? I'll operate us as soon as Sari says yes. And she will. Shouldn't Effie be the one to ask? As you know, Regulus is guardian. Rafael says, eyes darting from Regulus to James and back. Regulus wants to snap at him. What are you looking at? Oh, come on, James protests. Monty and Effie exchange a glance, then Effie crosses the room too. Rafael is right. I'll go talk to the healer. James, serious, everyone in this hospital is tired of your antics. If you want to increase Regulus's chances, you should stay put. But listen to your mother, Remus says, nudging Sirius's foot with his own. She's right. Healer Virtanen looks on the verge of breakdown every time you enter a room she's in. Fine. Sirius relents, rolling his eyes. Whatever. Reggie, if she doesn't let you out, I'll be here again tomorrow morning, okay? I love you. His brother pulls him into a hug. Regulus hugs him back. It's strange. They do this all the time now. Regulus suspects Sirius is cashing them in, because they are all too aware that unless a miracle happens, there might come a time when he won't be able to hug Regulus anymore. 3 flowers sits inside the 9th jar on Regulus's bedside table. Sari said no, obviously. There was no other answer, not when Regulus started coughing before they even reached his floor. Effie picked him up and carried him in her arms to his room. She called for help and watched in helpless desolation as Regulus splattered blood and petals all over the floor. Once the 3 flowers were out, the attack passed, but the fever remained. What little strength he'd gained left him just as swiftly. Still, Regulus asked. Blood on his lips, sweat on his brow. He asked Sari. He would have given anything for that dinner with his family, even if he who must not be named was there. But she said no, gently, with regret. But she still said no, and Regulus had no choice but stay in St. Mungo's. Outside, summer hangs in the air, makes it heavy and humid. The night sky twinkles. From his bed, Regulus can see stars. He knows their names, though he tries not to think about that often. His family doesn't desire his attention, not even tangentially. Through the window, moonlight spills over the cold tiles in a thick silver slant. They are clean now, but Regulus's blood was on them not 3 hours ago. Crimson droplets staining polished grey stone. White and purple petals scattered like broken china pieces. It was a sorry sight. Sighing, Regulus turns in his bed, his back to the window, and pulls the blanket higher. He's cold, and the tube in his arm itches. He wonders if this is all he has left to look forward to. What a miserable existence. In the dead of the night, loneliness is harder to fight, and Regulus is weak. Weak and wasting away, and a creak, scuffing against the floor, the swoosh of fabric. Alarmed, he sits up. His heart lurches painfully against the tapestry of flowers invading his ribcage. Breaths come in shallow puffs. What? James's head appears in the air. Regulus stares, blinking slowly as his brain puts the pieces together. Then he can't help the smile. You almost gave me a heart attack. Sorry, James says, throwing the invisibility cloak on the foot of the bed. I had to make sure there wasn't a nurse in here. What are you doing here? James makes a scooting motion with his hands and climbs onto the bed as soon as Regulus moves. It's second nature by now. James truly has been visiting him a lot. You didn't think I'd stop showing up just because I'm not a patient anymore? James asks, cocking his eyebrow. Come on, Reg. You know me better than that. No, I just mean, why aren't you at dinner? Where's the guy? We finished. James replies simply. It's embarrassing how Regulus's hopes soar before he realizes James means dinner and not his relationship. Everyone went home already. And you came here? James grins. He points at the cloak by their feet. I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner. With the cloak, they can't kick me out. They won't even know I'm here. Wait, are you? What's your plan? Whatever you want, James says cheerfully. We can talk. I have a deck of cards in my pocket. No explosive snap, I'm afraid. That will alert the nurses to my presence, or I can just keep you company for a while. We can sit in silence. He needs sleep, but Regulus would rather lick a cactus than send James on his way. Won't that be boring? Nope. It's nice with you. I like your quiet. Regulus doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what to think. He wants to ask why. Wants James to clear things up for him, except he can't. Because surely there's nothing to explain. James is a caring person. He has so much love inside of him that it's always spilling out. And Regulus is important to James. He's never been cagey about that. James considers him family. With a pang of horror, Regulus has the soul-shattering realization that if it were serious on this bed, James would have climbed into it with him too. It's just what James does. How many times has Regulus heard Remus complain about their nightly conferences when they were at school? How many rumors did Regulus have to fight about his brother and James? It doesn't mean anything other than what Regulus already knows to be truth. James cares, and also he goes out of his way to make Regulus happy. He'll keep him company and try to make him smile. James will fight his tooth and nail to make sure Regulus is comfortable. He'll do anything in his power to make this hospital stay less miserable. James loves him the way he loves Sirius and Remus, and Peter, Lily, and Marlene. James loves him, and this, Regulus thinks, hurts more than if he didn't care at all. Regulus is sitting on the windowsill, knees drawn up to his chest and arms around his legs when Sirius walks in. It's mid-August and the weather is hotter, more humid. A passing storm left a petrichor in the air. It tastes clean. Helps Regulus pretend he's not been trapped in this hospital for a month. These are the last tendrils of summer clinging on before autumn takes over. If it had all gone the way it is supposed to, Regulus would be out in the sun every day for practice. That dusting of freckles he always gets on his nose would be more pronounced now, and his skin wouldn't be quite so pale. He'd have slim muscles and a physique he worked hard for. A seeker's body, because that's what he needs to play his best for a professional team. A professional team he's not on, and will never be on, if things continue to go the way they have been. He's tired today, worn down by the test a healer from the United States put him through. They've run out of option. None of St. Mungo's healer have been able to figure out the root cause of Regulus's illness. With the vines spreading a little more each day, the urgency to name what's wrong with him grows too. But even the American healer, with his strange accent and approach to medicine, couldn't name the thing in Regulus's chest immediately. An anomaly indeed, he muttered, rolling around on a little chair, poking and prodding at Regulus, who sat still and straight on the edge of his bed. And you don't feel them? Not really. I can't breathe very well, but I don't exactly feel the vines. Or the flowers. The healer pursed his lips. His frown deepened with each new and perplexing symptom Regulus listed for him. And it started with petals? Regulus nodded, rubbing at his chest absently. One petal. Always white until it started having other colors too. Purple, yellow. Eventually, the healer said he'd do some research and report back in a few days with his findings. Regulus wanted to tell him, don't bother. You won't find anything, but with Effie in his room, he felt it would be better to give the healer a small smile, thank him for his time, and pretend there was still a little hope left to cling on to. After Effie left, Regulus expected at least a little time alone. James brought him a stack of books last night, his favorites, including the priceless edition of Wuthering Heights, to help get him through the nights he can't sleep or the days no one can visit him. At least until James sneaks in at night. But now Sirius is here, standing a few paces away with a brown paperback in his hand. I brought you some arepas, he says, lifting the bag for emphasis. Thought they might be a nice break from the hospital food. Hospital food isn't so bad, Regulus lies. He lies for Sirius's benefit. The hospital food isn't bad, but it's the same rotation of meals. Mondays and Thursdays are always pot roast. Tuesday is some type of pasta. Wednesday is generally a soup and salad combination, and Friday is pizza with a topping of his choice. Weekends are wild cards, or some repeat of a weekday meal. Dessert is always a strawberry flavored something, but Regulus doesn't eat it anymore. The smell of strawberries make him nauseous. Still, he does love arepas, and it will be nice to eat something Effie made. So, Regulus smiles his thanks and adds, just leave it on the table. I'll eat some later. How did the test go? Sirius takes a seat in one of two armchairs near the window. It's close enough he doesn't have to talk too loud, but far enough he isn't in Regulus's space. He said he's going to do some research and come back with the findings. Regulus picks at stray thread on the hem of his shorts. They are about all he can stand these days. His fevers run sudden and hot. Too much fabric becomes unbearable. Did Effie tell you he's American? She did. They practice magic a little differently over there. No owls or newts, so their healers go through a different process. Maybe he has different knowledge. Regulus wrinkles his nose and shoots Sirius a look. Highly doubt they have more knowledge. Maybe. Maybe not. But we've tried all of St. Mungo's healers. I hate that Effie and Monty are paying for all of this. Regulus gestures vaguely to the hospital room, though it all leads to far more. The American healer wasn't free, and Regulus is almost positive the price tag to bring him here was steep. I'm not their son. They shouldn't. Sirius holds up a hand. Don't, Reggie. Please don't start with that. You know why they are doing this. You're a part of their family. We are a part of their family. They took us in when we ran away, and they've been nothing but good to us since. Yeah, but there's no but. If it bothers you that bad, you can ask them for a bill when you are better and pay them back over a few years. Regulus flinches at this. Sirius never says if. He only ever says when. He exists in a world where Regulus survives this, where the odds aren't stacked against him and the ever-worsening sickness in his body is curable. It's temporary. There's no reason to exist in the if, because the when is certain. For Regulus, the if feel far more comfortable than the when. When carries as many letters as hope, and Regulus doesn't have a lot of the latter right now. How's practice going? He asked in an attempt to shift the subject from if and when and other things that make his throat close up. He doesn't really want to talk about Quidditch, but it keeps Sirius from lingering too long on the reasons why his visits are harder than anyone else's. Oh, it's good. It's good. Sirius shifts in his seat, getting comfortable. The new members on the team are okay. There have been a few issues the last week, but I think it's finally sorting itself out. Issues? Um, well, James has been he's missing practice, and he's never missed practices. It's causing some issues amongst the team, especially the new members. We have three new chasers on reserve, and I can't exactly handle them on my own. The other chaser helps obviously by two people training three. Isn't an even match. Regulus frowns. James is missing practices? Oh, yeah. He missed two or three last week. Said he wasn't feeling well and needed some time off. Sirius leans back in his chair and closes his eyes. I think he's not sleeping. Him and Rafael have been arguing a lot. James used to spend the nights at Rafael's a few times a week. Regulus aches for his want and a proper obliviate to wipe that sentence out of his brain. But he hasn't been going over at all, I guess. I heard them fighting the other night when James came home. Raphael was pissed about something, but James kept telling him to keep his voice down, so I didn't really catch any of it. The stab of delight Regulus feels is nothing short of savage. Never in his life he has been happier to hear about two people fighting. He's delighted, ecstatic. He would burst into song if he wasn't Regulus Black. But he is, so he swallows his grin and pretends his heart isn't shimmying in his chest. What does that have to do with missing Quidditch practices? Regulus doesn't quite understand this part. It's the best distraction from the other news. James has never missed a Quidditch practice. Even during his own nudes, he was at the pitch every morning to finish his runs before 6 a.m. Regulus would know. He made sure to be in the area to watch. There's no piece of muggle art that could have quite topped a shirtless James Potter in grey joggers, glistening with sweat and that early morning glow. Sirius shrugs and throws his hands up in the air, the gesture as overly dramatic and ridiculous as Regulus expect of his brother. Who knows? James has been a little dodgy lately. He goes to bed at 7:30 Regulus. James Potter, 7:30. I don't think he's gone to bed before 1 in the morning since we were 12. Regulus blinks once, twice. He's still a stone where he sits on the window ledge. James always comes to see him around 8. It's after visiting hour, but not so late in the evening that Regulus might have fallen asleep. He usually stays until Regulus does fall asleep around midnight or 1, and is gone by the time Regulus wakes up. Interesting, is all Regulus can manage to mumble. James is missing Quidditch practices. James isn't sleeping, because he's busy spending his evenings with Regulus, playing card games or reading books or daring one another to eat the grossest flavors in Bertie Bott's box. Anyway, Sirius continues, unperturbed by Regulus's silence. Other than that, Quidditch is fine. Oh, Remus says hello. He can't make it this week because he's been busy with the expose he's writing for the Prophet, but he said he'll come by in a few days with me. That's fine. Sirius's brows draw together slightly, and he regards Regulus with an inscrutable expression. Are you all right? I'm fine. That's what you always say. Because I'm always fine. Reggie, Sirius says slowly, there is a plant in your body. Someone might have cursed you, poisoned you. That's not fine. That's pretty bloody far from fine, actually. Regulus shifts his gaze away from his brother and stares out the window instead. If I'm not fine, then I'm dying. I think you should just let me be fine, Sirius. You are not dying. Don't say that. I might be. You're not. I can't breathe, Sirius. Regulus volleys back, his voice rising higher than it has in days. I cough up flowers. I cough up blood. I can barely walk from here to the toilet without needing a 5-minute break to sit down and catch my breath. Sirius opens his mouth to respond, but Regulus is bolder on a hill, barreling right down to the bottom and taking out all that's in his path. Effie and Monty are paying thousands of galleons for the best healers, but it won't matter in the end. None of them will figure out what this is, not before it kills me. Regulus wants to stop. Sirius flinches with every sentence, and even Regulus is surprised at his own bitterness. But doesn't he have a right to be angry? To be bitter? He's the one dying after all. He's the one who lost all of his dreams and doesn't know why. I bet that American healer comes back in a few days with nothing. I bet he'll say what every healer in St. Mungo's has already said. It's a mystery. It's an anomaly. They've never seen it before. Regulus leans forward, dropping his feet to the floor. You know what one of them said to me? They said they are not at all surprised. They said it's probably just a side effect. Do you know why? Sirius shakes his head once, blue eyes wide and shiny. Regulus points at his own eyes with 2 fingers. Because I'm already a magical marvel. Seems not too many witches and wizards are born with different colored eyes. We knew that because Mom made it very clear growing up that I'm a freak. But the healers? They think whatever is happening to me is just an inevitable end because I was born a bit different. Reggie, you know that it's not true? Tell that to the professionals, Sirius. They are the ones calling the shots. Regulus slumps back against the window. All the fight gone out of him at the sight of his brother rubbing furiously at his eyes. He didn't mean to make Sirius cry. Really, he didn't. He's just damned tired. I didn't know they said that. Effie didn't tell me. She wasn't here. I was alone. Sirius flinches as though it's a physical blow. In a way, it is. Regulus has always been better at throwing punches with his words. I'm sorry. They shouldn't have said that to you. I'll have Effie talk to them. Your eyes are... They are unusual, yes, but they are not why you are sick. Maybe. Maybe not. No one seems to know, do they? Sirius gets to his feet and crosses half the distance between them. He seems unsure if he can sit on the window ledge too, at least until Regulus pulls his knees back to his chest and nods at the empty space across from him. You are my brother, Reggie. I love you, and I know you are not the one to really say it, but I am. It's been hard. All of this. Regulus finds it difficult to swallow around the lump in his throat. I'm trying to act like everything is fine, because if I don't, then that means I have to... Sirius presses the heels of his hand to his eyes and mutters, Fuck. Reggie, you are my little brother. I know. There's so much else you're supposed to do. You're only 18. You're meant to have a whole fucking life ahead of you. Regulus doesn't want to speak. He's afraid he'll start to cry if he does. I hate that you are cooped up in this hospital. It's depressing here. It's fine. Stop saying that. Sirius drops his hand to glare across the narrow space separating them. It's not fine. You are not fine. I'm not fine. James isn't fine. Effie and Monty aren't fine. Your friends aren't fine. No one is fine with this. No one is fine with you dying. There is a part of Regulus that wants to tell Sirius thank you. It's nice to know people will miss him when he's gone. He's not sure where he'll end up once the vines take over and the flowers fill his lungs, but he hopes it's somewhere he can keep an eye on everyone who will mourn the loss of him. He'll protect them if he can. It's the least he can do. Hey, think of it this way, Regulus says with false cheer, nudging Sirius's feet in an attempt to lighten the mood. With me out of the way, James can get his wish and be best man at your wedding. We won't have to fight over it. Sirius's looks positively murderous. I can't believe you'd joke about that. The dying person is always allowed to joke about their own death. I'm going to strangle you. Ah, yes, speeding up the process. You always have been the more impatient one. Sirius kicks his foot into Regulus's shin, and Regulus can't help but laugh. It's too loud, but it shatters the tension and brings a smile to Sirius's face. It's not a full one, and it's a bit watery, but at least it's something. Don't ever joke about that to James, he mutters with a shake of his hand. He knows he's Remus's best man, and you are mine. There will be no fighting, I've decided. Regulus drops his head against the wall, laughter still in his chest. He can have it, though, when I'm not here anymore. You'll get better, Reggie. I know you will. And if you don't, I still won't let James be my best man. It's you, or it's no one at all. The American healer fails. Regulus bites his tongue so he doesn't say, I told you so, when Effie, Monty, Sirius, and James join the meeting to review his findings. The healer goes through the usual motions. He shows them the test results and fancy diagrams that track the progress of the plants inside Regulus's chest. It's all they can do. No one has any trouble evaluating the state of the invasion. The problem is, everyone is failing at figuring out where it came from. Disappointed but not surprised, Regulus rolls his eyes. He doesn't want to watch the healer. There's nothing he can say that Regulus hasn't already heard. Instead, he watches his family. The way Sirius's jaw clenches harder with every word from the American. The way Effie's fingers fist in her skirt, knuckles so pale they look ghostly. Monty is stoic, but Regulus knows him well enough to spot the muscle feathering on his cheek. And then there's James. James, who wears his devastation on his face, plain for all to see. The more the healer talks, the more the light dims in their eyes until there's nothing but sorrow. I think this is a unique case in the world, the healer says, shaking his head. Best we can hope for is palliative care. No, Sirius rose, slamming his hand on the table and standing up. No, you are just one person. We'll find someone else. We'll figure this out. You're just incompetent. Maybe, the healer looks resigned. I really hope you are right. I hope you find a way to diagnose and cure this. I really do. By the time the American bids them goodbye, Sirius is already brainstorming ideas. Monty, the eternal optimist that he is, sits next to him as they go through files of the most renowned healers around the world, choosing who they'll go to next. Notes fly over the desk, their competencies and expertise scribbled in messy hand drawing. They have 6 or 7 candidates, top healers from every corner of the globe. Regulus knows they've put this list together with Sari's help. He also knows none of this is cheap. Stop this, he thinks bitterly. Throwing money at it won't solve the problem. I'm going to die anyway. I'd rather you didn't resent me for depleting your vaults when I go. Hey, James says gently, nudging his shoulder. It breaks him out of his spiral, and just in time too. He would have said something awful had James not distracted him. Let's get you back to your room. Effie glances between them and Sirius and Monty. She's not ready to stop trying. Regulus can read it in the lines around her mouth and the steely determination in her eyes. Effie's love is too strong. It fuels a hope that Regulus has already given up on. "Go on," she says quietly. "We'll be there in a moment." Walking takes effort, but one of the changes introduced by the American was some level of daily exercise. He thought it would be good for Regulus, that it would help his blood move and prevent bed sores. So, the healer agreed with Sari that he'd have an office on the same floor as Regulus's room. Stairs are impracticable right now. And then he insisted on having him walk there and back for tests and samples once a day. 1.5 corridors. It's all he can manage, and even that he can't do alone. James offers his arm before Regulus can ask for help. He's so warm where Regulus's fingers curls over his bicep. Under any other circumstances, Regulus might have refused to touch him. It makes his life harder when he can feel the ghost of James's skin under his fingertips for hours after he's left. But the cold, hard truth is that Regulus can't make it back to his room on his own. "I hate this," he mutters as they take on the gargantuan task that is walking a single corridor. "I know." James doesn't push the subject any farther, and Regulus is grateful. He's not an idiot. James is a little bit like Sirius. He hasn't accepted that Regulus is dying. Not really. But James seems to understand that voicing his hopes or delusions only hurts him more. "I heard there's some scandal in ministry," Regulus says for no real reason other than he needs to talk about something that's not his illness. The Secretary of Foreign Affairs Minister was caught having an affair? "Oh, yes," James exclaims. "It's taking up every page of the Prophet. She's having an affair with the head of the Flu Network." "Why is that such a scandal?" James laughs, leaning into him a little bit more as they turn the corner. His room is just up ahead. A few more steps. He can make it. "Well, she's the wife of the vice president of the Portkey League." "Sleeping with the enemy," Regulus exclaims. "Exactly. They are always at each other's throat because better flu connections means people don't use portkeys as much. Especially since the new minister has been pushing for a nodal system to allow people to pass through touch points on their way somewhere else." "Is that actually going to be a thing?" "Last time I read about it, they were still testing." The door to his room falls open. Regulus hates that it smells familiar to him. He's been cooped up here for 6 weeks. Long enough for it to start feeling like he belongs. The thought terrifies him and infuriates him in equal measure. Too late, he realizes James is talking, explaining something about the nodal flu system and its progress. Regulus tries to put it together, but he can't. His ears are buzzing now. Outrage makes dark spots bloom behind his eyelids. "Hey," James says, stepping in front of him and cutting off his line of sight to the bed. "Hey, look at me, Reg. It's okay?" "No," Regulus croaks. "No, it's not." James swallows. His Adam's apple bobs. Any other time, Regulus would be fascinated by the way it drags on James's throat, by the stubble growing there, gripping on his jaw over his cheeks. Today, all Regulus can think about are the heartbeats in his chest, the fact that they are numbered and there is nothing anyone can do about it. "You are allowed to be angry," James says after a long pause. "I would be. Fuck, I am. I'm so mad I sometimes want to break something." "I'm not strong enough to rip a piece of parchment," Regulus retorts, looking away. The back of his throat tickles, but it's not a cough. It's bitterness and sadness. Despair tastes sour. "Would you like to?" At this, Regulus's eyes flicks to meet up James' intent gaze. He's standing so close, Regulus can feel the heat of his body. What? Would you like to break something? Yes. It hits Regulus that this is the first time someone has given him permission to feel his feelings, to rage against the hand that he has been dealt, to give it to the negative emotion festering under his skin like untreated wound, to be human, to be afraid. James is looking at the ugly truth of Regulus's heart and saying, I feel it too. How? He asks, voice small. I can be your hands, James tells him. He flicks his wand towards the door, locking it. They both know it won't last, but they don't need more than a few minutes. Next, James looks around. His eyes snag on the water pitcher next to Regulus's bed, on the half-empty glass. Come on. Slowly, they walk until they are standing next to the bed. James moves, positioning himself right behind Regulus. And then his hands are sliding down to his two thin arms. James's hands are huge. They are bigger than Regulus's even when he was not wasting away. All right, the first glass, James tells him. Their fingers interlace and James picks it up. Firmly, he raises both their arms together and then slams them down. The glass shatters against the tiles. Regulus gasps. It feels good. Again, he says, alarmingly breathless, but in an exhilarated sort of way. It's wonderful. Do it again. James's breath goes to the shell of his ear. A shiver runs down his spine. It's the most alive Regulus has felt since falling off his broom during the tryouts. James's heartbeat is steady against his back. I think you should scream, James says, a note of giddiness in his voice. Just let it out, Reg. What's happening is horrible. It's unfair. It's fucking bullshit. Yes, Regulus agrees. Yes. So just let it out. When they pick up the pitcher and raise it above their heads, Regulus lets out a sort of a roar-like noise he's never made before in his life. It wrenches itself from the very place where the flowers crowd his lungs. It hurts his throat and brings tears to his eyes. But as they throw the pitcher onto the tiles, it also shakes something loose in his chest. Emotions swell and release. Facing and owning his anger is cathartic. Shards of ceramic fly everywhere. What little strength Regulus had left evaporates as the relief sweeps through him and he sags back against James. Hey, I've got you. Thank you, Regulus whispers. He's exhausted now. Thank you. The door knob rattles. A moment later, the door opens and bangs against the wall. Rafael steps inside, eyes darting from the mess on the floor to Regulus, still in James's arms. He looked irked. What the hell is going on? Regulus stiffens. It's an automatic response. This isn't a moment meant for eyes that aren't his or James's. It's definitely not a moment meant for this fucking guy. But before he can tell Rafael to get the hell out of his room, James drops his arms and takes a step to the side and away. Hey, he says with a small smile in Rafael's direction. It makes Regulus's blood burn. No, it makes his blood boil. He wants to pick up the shards of ceramic and break them a little more. Stomp and smash and turn them all to dust until there's nothing left. But there's no strength in him, no energy that he can use to expel his anger, so it sits heavy on his shoulders as he sags back on his bed. Whoa, you're all right? Asks James, twisting to grip his bicep and help him get comfortable. Here, let me just... He pulls his wand from his back pocket and waves it a flourish. Pieces of ceramic fly back together, and the shards rearranging in their proper places when the pitcher settles on the small table beside Regulus's bed. There, Aguamenti. Regulus mumbles a small thank you when James hands him a full glass of water. His throat aches from the roar he let out moments before, and his lungs feel heavy. Rafael makes a noise from where he still stands in the doorway. Ready to go, babe? Something in James's expression turns sour when the term of endearment echoes through the room. His back is to Rafael. It's Regulus who sees the slight narrow of his eyes, the thinning of his lips, the twitch in his cheek. Before he can make something out of it, though, James has already turned around. You go ahead, You said we'd go home together. I know, but... James, let's go. Raphael's tone is sharp, a little forceful. We've been here for hours. This place is depressing, and I would like at least a little time with you before I have to go. Regulus isn't sure what he means, but the entire conversation feels like one he isn't meant to hear. Him and Raphael have been arguing a lot, Sirius has told him. James hasn't mentioned it, of course. He never mentions his boyfriend. Not really. If he does, it's in vague terms. Regulus has to put the pieces together on his own later. It's a thing he hates doing, because it means acknowledging the holes in James's stories are simply Raphael-shaped pieces. James's voice isn't right when he reaches out to squeeze Regulus's shoulder gently and says, I'll see you later. Okay, Reg? Okay. See you later. He's not sure if it's this evening later or another day later, but with you-know-who blaring from the doorway, Regulus doesn't want to ask. He gives James a weak smile, then turns onto his side. He's careful not to lie on his arm. It's always sore these days from the port they put in a few weeks ago. It makes it easier to hook and unhook the tube that pumps him full of nutrients. He's exhausted, but even after James leaves, he lies awake, staring out the window of his small hospital room. He hates James's boyfriend with all that he is, but Raphael was right. This place is depressing. It's with sudden violence that he coughs, chest aching from the intensity of it. The velvet softness on his tongue isn't foreign anymore. He's used to it. The petal drops into his waiting palm, flecks of blood against the soft purple. He stares at it, this thing slowly killing him while the rest of the world makes plans for a future he won't get to see. Sirius will play games he won't watch. Remus will write books he won't read. Pandora will earn awards for her discoveries. Evan and Barty will incite riots over ministry legislations. Marlene and Dorca will go on epic adventures. James will get married, if not to Raphael, then to someone else, and forget Regulus ever existed. The Regulus-shaped piece in their lives will be a hollow ache for a little while, but eventually, like all wounds, it will heal. They will all forget about him. Maybe not all of the time or every day, but their lives will progress along after his end. For the first time, Regulus curls his fingers over the petal in his palm. He crushes it until there's nothing left but a fine dusting of purple on his skin. James tries to keep his irritation tempered down when he operates himself and Raphael into the entryway of his flat. He expects Raphael to start ranting, to throw a fit and make a huge deal out of whatever it is he thinks he saw when he barged into Regulus's room. It's what James expects because it's how most of their conversation go these days. Raphael is always upset with him. Except Raphael isn't yelling at him. He's pushing James up against the wall instead, his hands under James's shirt and his lips on James's neck. There's an urgency to it, a sort of desperation that only makes James' irritation flare brighter. "What are you doing?" he grits out, the nip of teeth on his skin more fuel to the fire. Usually he would like this sort of thing. Rafael has done it to him before, but right now, it makes him flinch. Rafael pushes his knee between James's thigh. "What does it look like I'm doing?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" Rafael stills, his lips on the hinge of James's jaw. He huffs a mirthless laugh. "You don't fucking know." "Right. Got it." He takes a full step away and James feels like he can breathe again. "We haven't had sex in weeks, James." I know, I'm sorry." Rafael's expression morphs from irritation to incredulity. "You're sorry?" "Yeah, I've been tired. Not really in the mood." "Why the hell are you so tired all of the time?" He's not sure if Rafael is being willfully ignorant, or if he truly has no idea what has made James's life feel so off balance he doesn't know up from down anymore. "You do realize Regulus is..." Oh, he hates saying it out loud. It makes it real if he says it out loud. "Ah, of course. Regulus." James has been angry all day. He was angry when he woke up. He was angry when the American healer said his research produced no results. And he was angry when he heard Regulus let out that broken, terrified scream. So it's no surprise he's angry now too. He knows he shouldn't let it take over, but he's exhausted. He's in agony. He hasn't been sleeping, he's worried and afraid, and he's suffocating under a pile of things he can't tell Regulus. He will not put that burden on shoulders that are terrifyingly frail. James needs an outlet. Raphael looks pissed. He said Regulus with the wrong tone. "What about Regulus? Because I do not like your fucking tone right now." Raphael's eyebrows shoots up and James's anger is that picture in Regulus's hands, thrown and shattered on the floor. Each word out of his mouth comes out in sharp, jagged pieces. "What about him, Raphael? Have some balls. Say what you've got to say." His boyfriend bites. A deep, enraged breath, and then he's off. "You spend all of your free time there. All of it. Every day. Any chance you get, you are there at the hospital. What the fuck do you do? Play cards? Read books? His life is depressing, James. You don't need to make it worse by pretending you care." "How dare he?" "What did you just say to me? Do you think I'm pretending?" James's voice rises with each word. "Do you think I'm pretending to care about him? Is that really what you think of me?" Raphael looks up to the ceiling back at James. His eyes are wide, a little wild. Sparks are flying between them, the fire of a fight that's been brewing for days. "Merlin, you really don't see it, do you?" "See what?" A derisive half laugh. Then Raphael shakes his head slowly, expression carefully blank. "I'm not going to be the one to say it. It's none of my fucking business and the kid has enough to deal with it as it is. But I'm tired of wondering where my boyfriend is, only to find out from Sirius you are at the hospital. Again. We haven't been on a date. You never stay over. What the hell are we doing?" "I shouldn't have to spend every hour with you," James says through clenched teeth. "Regulus is dying, Raphael. He's barely 18 and will be lucky if he makes it to Christmas. So I'm terribly fucking sorry that for a few months I'm focused on getting every second I can with someone who means something to me." The words douse Raphael's fire in an instant. He reaches for James, shame and guilt making him shake a little. "James, Unfortunately, James's fire is still fierce and burning. He smacks Raphael's hand away. If you are patient and you wait a few months, it won't be a fucking problem for you anymore. His voice breaks. He takes a breath to compose himself. Can you be patient, Rafael? Can you wait a few months for an 18-year-old to die? Rafael flinches back. His regret is written all over his face. That's not what I meant. I don't want him to die any more than you do. Then why this is an issue? Why are you acting like this? Because Rafael pulls his shoulders back and sets his jaw resolute. You know what? It's fine. I'm sorry. I just miss you, but I said it all wrong. I think I'm feeling a little pressure, and with the trip for 2 weeks, I thought we'd spend more time together before I left. James knows if he truly had anything left to feel for Rafael, that this apology would sway him. But at this moment, when all he can think about is how he said out loud for the first time that Regulus is dying, James feels nothing at all. Just go. What? Just go, please. Are you breaking up with me? Maybe. No. James runs both hands up his face, pushing up his glasses. I just need some space. I need some time to think. I didn't mean it, James. This bit about Regulus, I didn't. Just go. Fingers circle his wrist, but James is strong enough that Rafael can't pull his hands away. I'll be gone for 2 weeks, babe. At least give me a kiss before I go, please. No. Merlin, James has come to loathe when Rafael calls him babe. It's acid to his ears now. Go, Rafael, please. I'll send you a note in a few days. I need space. Rafael doesn't say anything else. He disapparates with a loud crack, and James is left alone in the entryway. He stares at the wall for a long time. The silence is deafening after such an explosive fight. It's a blanket heavy with all the things James should have said but didn't. The weight of it all presses down on him like someone filled his pocket with rocks. He's losing control of his life. The missed practices, the fights with Rafael, the nightmares. They are all symptoms of his true ailment. If James had to name it, he'd probably go with despair. He's always been a big boy with big emotion, but this is beyond. His anger is living, blistering thing prowling his chest. His fear is the frantic fluttering of 100 panicked birds trapped inside a cage. His impotence is a rope around his neck tightening with every day that passes, and Regulus doesn't get better. James wants to help. He'd do anything to save Regulus. Godric forgave him. James would take his place if he could. He'd face death just so that Regulus didn't have to. But he can't, and he doesn't know how to deal with that. He's not a healer. He's just a boy halfway to a man who's watching someone he loves fades like a painting left too long in the sun. James can't cure Regulus's illness. He can't imbue strength into his limbs or blow air into his lungs. Can't stop or prune the vines sapping the life from him. But he can draw smiles on his face. He can bring him books and read the words he loves for him. He can sneak sweets into St. Mungo's and play pranks on the nurses to make Regulus laugh. He can take his mind away from the aches and the terror of facing the end much too soon. If Rafael has a problem with that, then Rafael can kiss his fucking ass. He should have said yes, James realizes. He should have broken up with Rafael. Ended it then and there. It would be the kind thing to do, the right thing to do. Rafael deserves better. He deserves someone who can and wants to be with him fully. And it's just not James. Because James can't think of anything but Regulus's too thin body, of dark circles under the most beautiful eyes, the paleness of Regulus's skin and the fine bones of his wrists. There's no way James will be fit to act as boyfriend to Rafael or to anyone for the foreseeable future. He should have said yes, but he didn't. Because at the end of the day, James is painfully human. For all his bravado, all his strength and heroics, James can barely even call himself an adult. Truthfully, he's afraid. There will come a day when Regulus is gone, and James will have to face life without him. He'll have to find a way to go on, and he's not sure he'll be able to do it alone. James? He didn't hear the door open, but on the threshold, Remus stands watching at him. Oh, hi. I'm not going to ask if you're okay, Remus says, stepping inside and shutting the door behind him. His satchel bag is at his hip, and there's an ink stain on his fingers. But did something happen? Rafael. Ah. Remus toes off his shoes and gestures towards the kitchen. Come on, I'll make tea. I don't want tea. I'm not asking if you want it. James follows him. Remus's scars glint in the golden light from the ceiling lamp. He moves with purpose, with ease. To James's surprise, he finds that his frayed nerves are soothed by Remus's steady presence as he puts on the kettle and lines 2 mugs on the counter. Where's Sirius? James asks. Out running. It means Sirius is pet food, and he's chasing squirrels or what have you in the nearest park. Emotions are easier to handle as dog. James envies his best friend. A giant stag in the middle of a London park is a far stranger sight than a shaggy black dog. The kettle whistles, and Remus pours boiling water into the mugs, dips tea bags in the liquid. As though he read James's mind, he offers, Maybe you should give it a try. Might help you clear your head. My head is fine. It isn't, Remus argues. It's a knowing look he gives James. And that's okay. James takes a shuddering breath. His hands shake and his throat bobs. Remus's amber eyes are soft, but not with pity. There's understanding and love in them. Somehow this is worse. If Remus pitied him, James could pour his anger onto him. Let it burn him like it's burning his insides. But Remus knows what it's like to be angry at something you can't change. He probably knows better than anyone. So James breaks. No, it's not. Remus moves, the teacups forgotten. Lean arms close around James. He presses his face against the soft cotton t-shirt. It smells of parchment and ink, cigarette smoke and tea leaves. It wasn't supposed to be like this, James laments against Remus. He's too young. It's not fair. I know. I don't know how to be okay with it. You don't. You aren't. You won't be, Remus says. It's not okay. None of it is okay. It's a tragedy and pretending otherwise helps no one. But you must carry on. Regulus needs us to carry on, to have hope when he gives up, to fight for him. If there is one chance he might get better, we have to do everything we can to find it. What if there isn't? Remus swallows, tightens his grip on James. Then at least we will know we did all we could. We'll know we tried our best, and we'll remember him without regrets and without guilt. We'll remember him. James makes a sound of raw desolation. He doesn't want to remember Regulus. He doesn't want to have to, but he will. James already knows he will live the rest of his life with a ghost on his shoulder. How do you do it? James asks him. He's never been so direct before. They all just pretend Remus's lycanthropy is a minor inconvenience, a fairy problem. In the grand scheme of things, turning into animals once a month to run around a forest far from civilization isn't a big deal. It's fun even. But deep down they know it is a big deal. It has always been. So James draws back and looks at Remus and asks again, How do you live with the weight of something like that? I just do. I've got no choice. And neither do you. You can't change what has happened or stop the inevitable. You just can't. But you can be there for Regulus. So be there for Regulus. Rafael is angry with me. He thinks I'm there for Regulus too much. Fuck Rafael, Remus scoffs. You don't think he has a point? If he's jealous of a dying kid, then he can suck. James flinches so hard he knocks over the fruit basket near his elbow. Remus looks down, alarmed. But James is blabbing now. Please don't, he gasps. Don't say it. Just don't say that word. I can't. Remus sighs. He pulls James back in to hold him close. Sirius always says Remus's hug have magical healing properties. James isn't so sure about that because all he feels is the breaking. But Remus holds him through it. Through the sobs that build and crash out of him in waves. Through the trembling and the hiccuping. Through the wails and the shuddering breaths after. James cries. Remus holds him. Through it all, Remus hums a comforting tune, something his mother used to hum to him when he was a kid and his wounds were gaping. James knows because Remus told him one night, when the roles were reserved and it was Remus crying and James holding him. The moon crawls higher up in the sky. Sirius stays out, running and ignoring his pain. James gives into it. Remus bears witness. The tea grows cold on the counter.